And now it's time to put our instrument away. Putting the instrument away is very simple. In fact, it's pretty much the same as putting it together, but just backwards. So we start with the reed. And immediately, I like to go ahead and put my reed in its reed case to make sure that it doesn't get chipped or broken. Next, the bocal. And again, we don't move the bocal here, and we don't move the bocal here, right at the crook, straight up. We've got to make sure we get all the moisture out of the bocal, so we cover the vent key, aim it at someone you don't like. No, aim it at the floor. And blow nice and hard, making sure as much moisture as possible exits the bocal. Bocal goes right in the case. Take the bell off, again, pressing down on the B flat key. Bell goes in the case. Long joint off, in the case. And now, it's time to take the wing joint and separate it from the boot. And this is where it gets a little tricky, but it's not that big of a deal. Wing joint goes off, and we're going to lay it in the case, but not as though we're going to close it, because we're going to come back to the wing joint in just a second. Probably the most important part about disassembling the bassoon is swabbing out. You must swab out every time you play. No matter what, no matter how much of a hurry you're in, you got to take the time to swab out the bassoon. Moisture kills the inside of the instrument. It can rot the wood if it's not lined. If it is lined, it can do a number of other things. Not to mention, it wreaks havoc on pads. So, rule of thumb, always swab. It doesn't take that long. Also, before you swab, you want to check your swab to make sure that there are no knots or kinks in your swab. If your swab has a knot or a kink in it, it will get stuck in the bassoon, and that is not a place where you want to be. So always check your swab to make sure that there are no kinks. Mine's okay. And then proceed swabbing. Swabbing the boot is very simple. We always swab from the big end to the little end. So we find the big end of the boot, insert our chain down that end. And then we're going to turn it over, but I like to shake it just a little bit to make sure that the chain is all the way on the bottom. And it should come through the other side, in which case it did. And then you pull the swab straight through. If you've been playing a long time, you might want to actually empty whatever spit and condensation has formed at the bottom by tilting it through the small end on the bottom. All right, it's very important that you tilt small end down, because if you tilt large end down, you'll get that moisture through the large section, which often is not lined. So empty the water, maybe on a friend's shoe, maybe right on the floor, and then proceed to swab. This can go in the case, it's ready. Next, we take the wing joint back out, and it's time to swab the wing joint. Again, we swab from big end to little end. This is a little less complicated. Straight down in. Pull the swab through, and you're good to go. Wing joint goes in. I like to check to make all my joints are nice and secure in the case. Close it, make sure it's latched. Good to go.